So, hello everyone online. This is our last session together. So, just to wish you well and hope the words that we've practiced here and the practices are useful and helpful. If you're ever asked to teach, or if you ever want to share Dhamma, it's actually a very good way to learn about what you understand yourself. So if you share Dhamma with someone as just an opinion, usually the person gets bored within 30 seconds. Oh, here they go again. So that we call Buddha babble. And people will do that. They'll just get into talking in a Buddhist way, but actually being actually quite heedless. So when we have compassion, we listen first, don't we? We try to understand who is this person, and where are their joys and sorrows, and do I get a sense of where their challenges are? And that's not preaching; that's just waiting. And in that waiting, you're not trying to jump in there and solve their problem. I think that's one thing that any teacher learns, maybe parent as well. You don't just kind of get an idea and then just talk at them, or kind of compare yourself to them, but you really obviously you want to understand them, and that might take 5 years, or one day, or you don't know. Um, so then, in terms of that relationship, I think what you want to engage, or you want to see the difference between a frivolous question and a serious question. You know the word frivolous, how we say in Thai, not serious. Come on, give me. Can you? You're the manager. You should know. Frivolous question is a not serious question. So, opinions to me are always frivolous questions. Is Mahayana better than Theravada? To me, that's a frivolous question. What does it matter? Does Mahayana work for you? Does Theravada work for you? Why does it work for you? Which one works for you? That's more like a serious consideration. And the seriousness for me is about our human predicament, our suffering, what makes us happy, what makes us sad, how the teaching works in relationship to my heart. And so that's really one of the ways, common ways that a teacher will listen to a question. And when the question is just yet another academic opinion about whatever, I think most teachers, they just sit there and look at the person. So I was in a. Did you go to that Ganga Mas? Yeah, we were in South India, and in Tiruvannamalai, which is the town where Sri Ramana Ashram is, which is one of the most famous ashrams in India, from a great saint called Sri Ramana, and it's a town full of sadhus. It's like sadhus all over the place, and not in a Hindu kind of way. And so you quite often get different gurus manifesting around there and being there. So this woman, Gangama, she's, I don't know, 40, between 40 and 50 years old, maybe. And she had a reputation as being a great yogi because she would often be at, at the ashram just sitting a lot, meditating a lot in a very, very serious way, and very quiet. And now she has become a guru. And so we were invited to go. Very interesting. And we come into a room which was probably this big, and it was maybe a bit wider, packed with people, and everyone just sitting quietly, and her sitting there. And the format of that, what they call satsang, sitting with a teacher, is silence. You sit in silence with the teacher, and the teacher is always available um, for questions. So in that session, and if you remember, there, someone, I think there's an American psychologist in the front row. So you imagine like she's kind of sitting here, and all the devotees are either on chairs at the edge or on the floor. Everyone's silent. So all of a sudden, this voice comes out and says, "Ganga Maji, I'm a psychologist, and I'm just wondering how the world looks from your side." She didn't say anything. She just sat there, and it was quite good. She didn't entertain his his curiosity because it wasn't a serious question, right? It was just kind of gossip, if you see what I mean. And then someone else asked about something about effort and presence. I can't quite remember. And that was obviously a sincere question, and she gave an answer. So sincerity in relating with Dhamma, it's really beautiful, and that's what we've had here. We've had we've had true Kalyanamitta, which is for a teacher, it's the best thing. And then when I like one of the meditators had a really good insight on chronic pain and friendship, and she saw that the she became friends with her chronic pain, and obviously a huge insight for her. And I thought, oh, sati, sati, sati. And that is so delightful for a teacher. And it comes out of some very sincere and serious investigation of the way things are. And that is hopefully what we're doing as Kalyanamitta. We're developing um, both a personal practice of taking responsibility for our own inner life, and then sharing that in the sincere way, rather than just becoming like opinionated Buddhists, or gossiping about other Buddhists, or those kinds of things, and those kinds of communications. We'll always have that, so I mean, everyone seems to love gossip. I don't know why. Maybe Luangpor Viradhammo doesn't. But those are the trivial things. But the real heart of it is this sincerity of aspiration, the sincerity of intention, and then the sharing of that. So if you are then sharing in that way, or you have a youngster in the family or an elder in the family or whatever, and you come to that truly compassionate listening, right? Then you'll find the answers. If you've practiced on your own, you'll find the answers. But if you just jump in and yes, so the example I often give was when you've heard this before, but it's a good example, and I've only got one life, so you run out of examples. But when my mom died, I was with her throughout, right? And I'm not a doctor, and I made some medical mistakes in her dying process, which was difficult for me to process after she died. And then I spoke to several of my peers, and when I just related what had happened, they some of them, most of them, some of them immediately tried to fix it. Oh, but you were such a good son. You were really, really good son. But what that felt like is, well, you're not really listening. I don't want you to fix this for me. I just want someone to listen. And then the lovely Ajahn Suchito, he heard that. He says, wow, that must have been difficult. And I said, "Oh, thank you." Yeah. So I didn't need fixing. There was no problem. I wasn't caught in any kind of, I was just expressing, I guess, sorrow and what happens when you make a seeming mistake, and so on and so forth. So just saying to people, oh, it will change, or it's not self, or don't attach, or you're such a nice guy. That's Buddha babble. And it's not really compassionate. And you get that, don't you? When someone starts preaching at you, you basically, you'd like them to go away, to be polite. And then if they're senior, you have to endure it. If they're junior, you can say, be quiet. Um, but the sincerity of communication, the sincerity of listening is incredibly rewarding on the other hand, isn't it? Like to be able to hear someone's predicament and and then communicate with it and get a sense of where they're at and then touch it and okay, I think we're on the right track and then share Dhamma. Because quite often actually you learn more from the other person rather than just from yourself. That's to me the essence of Kalyanamitta on that level. There's also the essence of Kalyanamitta going to the restaurant together this evening or whatever and having fun. I mean, that's okay. But that essential part of what communication is about is, I think, very important to understand what compassion is. So when I hear, when I'm with uh, a monastic, say, a senior monastic maybe, and I hear them just talking at people and not listening, yeah, okay, but where's the compassion? And sometimes as teachers, we have to give talks which are quite abstract because we can't relate to everyone. But the more our communication is in that sense about again, what is compassion? Compassion is entering into the space of the other person and getting a feeling for them, which takes listening. So in terms of what you might do when you leave this retreat, well, have some fun. Make sure the fun is legal and so on. So don't make Buddhism some heavy, self-obsessed process where you're always thinking about yourself. That's not what it is. You're reflecting on the way things are in terms of the movement of emotion and how things arise and cease, but you're not just thinking about yourself. Thinking about yourself is thinking about yourself. Knowing the movement of the inner world is knowing Dhamma. And that's what that whole idea of Sakaya Ditti is about. So we do take responsibility for our inner world, but we don't obsess with our inner world in some kind of a self way. So sense of humor. George, where's George? George, you going to take him with you, or you don't know? Phyllis, where's Phyllis? I mean, Phyllis. We had a few. We had Phyllis and Eleanor too, and so some sense of lightness and a long range view that some of these habits don't end overnight. Even if you understand them, that's always very disappointing. You understand something, you have an insight, and wow, there it is again. It's just the nature of vipaka kamma. So that sense of, well, I'll do this for a lifetime, at least one. And if it takes more, so be it. So these are attitudes which I think in the end, if we go back to our friend's insight, is a kind of friendliness to your own kamma, friendliness to your own bodily aches and pains and your own emotional extremes or all the rest of it. And that's the kind of theme that I introduced, I think, this retreat, the idea that metta is not just a bhavana in a dualistic relationship with others. I love you, I love my mom, I love, and so on. But rather it's an attitude of open acceptance, all things arise and cease. and cultivating that, the simplest way from what our friend said in the interview is friendliness. But can you be friendly to annoyance as it arises? Can you be friendly to um, self-doubt? Usually the heedless person gets reborn into annoyance, gets reborn into self-doubt. And the friendliness is that, oh, hello, George, or or Sally, or whoever you want. Or so we have we've everyone's done a lot of work, been very, very diligent. You can't take this experience away. Obviously, you can try, but you'll suffer. So the experience of even of inner silence is something that will change with the inputs of a more busy life. But you can take away right understanding, samadhi. You have more understanding now of what your particular patterns are. You can take away right thinking and be careful of wrong thinking. You can do that. You can take that away. And so you can take the path. The path is not an experience. The path is the doing, I suppose. And samavayama, samasati, samasamadhi. So I was in the last 3 years, I've been thinking about samasamadhi, too much thinking. And if you I keep defining it for myself because I don't like sometimes the way it's defined in conventional circles. But um, it seems to me if you're attentive, when Luangpor says it's like this, and you're awake and attentive to the way things are, then you sustain that for 3 seconds and then 5 seconds. To me, that's samadhi, presence, knowing the way things are. Uh, Sustaining it a long time, of course, is challenging. So effort, mindfulness, but I think that's very accessible. So not to make some final definition, because then you get caught into opinions, but how can we use the language of, in this case, samma samadhi, which is applicable to our daily lives rather than just a fantastic experience you get later on. But so just that, just it's like this. Now, when I taught the bodily meditation, I say, it sounds like I'm starting another retreat, doesn't it? Sorry. Anyway, bear with me. It's only 10 more minutes. You'll be free. But when I suggest to you, notice the feeling in the mouth, and then I say, allow it to become conscious, and then the feelings in the mouth become manifest, don't they? So that waiting, what is that waiting? Waiting, well, waiting for nothing really, and then the feeling in the tongue or the lips becomes manifest. That sense of allowing things to manifest and waiting seems to me the basis of samma samadhi, because I'm not trying to get anything or get rid of anything. I'm not going anywhere. So just that, just your, someone's driving you back to Bangkok or Singapore, wherever you're going, and you're in a vehicle and it's different, and yet it's like this, and you pause, and there's composure, there's collectedness, and you do that a million times a day. You do that a lot, and that I think is doable. It's not. It's very, very human, very, very possible. So we'll soon do a forgiveness ceremony. So if I said anything that's confusing or inappropriate or inadvertently unkind, please, I ask for your forgiveness, and just express my gratitude for allowing me to talk Dhamma. It's a great privilege, and thank you for the great food and the good friendship. So I wish you freedom from suffering, prosperity, good health, good friendships, and a happy time. Okay.